What's going on, everyone? Jason here again. In this video I'm going to show you how to create a simple Next.js app using the Github API. And so with this app we're going to basically create a page here, and we're going to render out 3 cards with our GitHub stats. The first one will be our stars across our GitHub page, the amount of followers that we have, and also the repos that you starred. And we'll also be using Vercel to deploy this to the web, so you'll have a deployed project up and going. And for the component library styling that we'll be using will be Chakra UI. It's a new component library that I've been messing around with and I've been liking it so far. So we'll be using that just to set up the heading and the cards here. And we'll also be using a custom hook by Next.js called useSWR. So basically what this does is, it's basically like it says here, it's a library for remote data fetching. So basically you can what it does is it'll return data from the cache, and then it'll also send a fetch request to revalidate. So a cool thing with that is, let's see, it'll revalidate on focus. So for example, if I go back, for example, let's say on my GitHub somebody new follows me or I star another repo. So if I go to my GitHub here real quick, or actually I'll just go ahead and star this one. So let's say I star this, I'll star it. And then if I go back to my project, as you can see, it revalidated in the background, so it's constantly looking to revalidate and updating if any data has changed. So we'll be using that library for data fetching. But yep, so that is the project. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'll be doing is I'll be going to the Vercel website, and I'm actually going to set up my project through here. And so on Vercel, you can see some information about Vercel, how it works. Let's see. So first thing you need to do is, if you don't have an account yet, go ahead and sign up. Since I already created an account, I can just log in. And since I'm already logged into my GitHub, it'll automatically log me in. Let's see. So continue with GitHub. So first thing you want to do to set up a project is you can go to Overview, go to Import Project, and you can actually set up your project through here if you'd want. You don't have to, but I think this is a good way to get started. So here we can actually import a Git repository or select a template that they can set up for us. And you have different templates here that you could use. But for our use case, we're going to be using Next.js. So we'll click on Next.js. And let's see, so we'll click on your account here, click Continue. And you'll name this project. So let's just name it GitHub Next app, and we'll set this to private for now, and then we'll go continue. So then now what you'll see is the deployment process. As you can see, currently Vercel is deploying your new project right now, and you can see how long when it started, and you can also see the logs here. And now you should see a little message saying that your project has been successfully deployed, and let's go ahead and visit it. And here is the new deployed project. All right, and let's go to our GitHub real quick, and let's go to GitHub Next app. So that is a project that we just set up, and let's go ahead and just copy that, and we're going to clone it on our local machine. So in the directory that you want to clone it, you'll just do a git clone and copy that. Press enter. And then you can cd into your project. And let's go ahead and let's see. So let's just do an npm I to install the dependencies and open up our project in VS Code. All right, now that we installed the dependencies, let's do an npm run dev. So let's just do a localhost 3000. There is our app in localhost. Now here is the project directory, so here's our index, and let's go ahead and just customize this real quick. And let's see, div, hello, save that, let's go back. Alright, cool, so everything looks like it's set up. So now let's go ahead and install the dependencies that we'll need. The first one we'll do will be the Chakra UI, so let's go into here. Go to get started, and in in getting started, we can just copy this right there to install that. So in our project directory, let's install the dependencies for the Chakra UI. Alright, and the next thing we'll install will be the useSWR library. So let's see if I remember right. So it'll just be npm iswr, so npm iswr. And we're also going to be using a JavaScript API client for GitHub, which is called octokit rest.js. So this will just make it easier for us to make our requests. It'll provide us some methods to handle all of our requests that we need to make. So we can just copy this right there as well. Add that in there and install. Now the next thing we'll do is set up our Chakra UI styling. And so what we'll need to do is we'll need to go to the pages folder, and we're going to create a new file called _app.js. And for this, if we go to the Next.js documentation and we go to, let's see, docs, custom app. So we're going to be using, so this is basically going to be our custom app component, and basically what this does is it initializes the pages, and we can do any overrides as the pages are initializing. And so like it says here, we can add global CSS. And so what we'll do is we'll just copy what they have here, paste that, and now up here I'm going to import. I'm going to import from Chakra theme provider and CSS reset. And this will be from Chakra UI core. So now in here, let's add some parens, move that in there. And so in here, we're going to wrap our component with the theme provider. So this will wrap all of our pages when they get initialized. And let's move that in there. And let's see. And then up here, we'll add our CSS reset to give us a base styling. And that should be it. So let's save it. And then let's just restart our app here real quick. And if we go back to our app, as you can see, the hello looks a little bit different. Cool. And now the next thing we'll do is we'll just start building out the page. So in our index, we're going to go in here, we're going to remove all of this. And then let's see, so let's go ahead and start building this page out. So let's see, so inside here, we're going to remove this as well. And we're going to add a fragment. And let's see, so let's go ahead and start adding the heading. And so for that, we're going to go ahead and first add a box component. So that you can think of a box as a div. So this will basically just be the wrapper container for our page. And we're just going to add some margin at the top. So MT stands for margin top. We'll add 5. And now we're going to add the heading. So Chakra UI has a heading component. So we'll add heading here. And for heading, it has some props. So we'll set this up as an H1. We're going to text align center. And the size, we're going to give it a 2XL. And we're going to give it a margin bottom of 5. And in here, we're going to add JSONs, GitHub stats. And now we'll just import those components. So we're importing box and heading from Chakra UI core. Let's save it, go back, and there is our heading. Alright, cool. now let's add our section here with the card for the GitHub stats. And so in here, we're going to add another box, or actually no, we're going to add a flex component. So this is like, CSS flex, where it'll flex any containers or any divs that are inside here. So with flex, this will take a prop and it's called justify. So this is just like justify content if you use flex before. And in here we can just add a string center. So we're going to center all of our items that are flexed. And now we'll add the actual divs or boxes. And let's see, so we're going to have 3 of these. 1, 2, 3. And let's see. And so inside here, we're going to add a stat component. So if you go back to Chakra UI and we look for stat, we're going to be making use of basically just the styling here for our stats. So stats, as you can see, will have a stat container with the label and also the number. So we'll be using that. And stats here will be the container, so stat. And inside stat has stat label. And inside stat label, we'll just use a text component, and this will have a font size equal to, we'll give it XL. And in text, this will be our title, so it'll be GitHub stars. And then down here, we'll add stat number. And for stat number, we'll just add, let's just hard code this in for now. And let's see, cool. And in box, so this will be, we're going to make this look more like a card, so we'll need to add some styling here. So here we'll add a width of, let's see, 300 pixels, and padding all around of 5. Margin left of 8, and margin bottom of 3. Going to give it a border width of, let's just do 1 pixel. We're going to make it rounded. Rounded will be LG, and we'll do overflow hidden. So let's just go ahead and copy this for all of these. There we go. So for the first one, GitHub stars, GitHub followers, and GitHub, Repo starred. Now let's quickly import these. So we have flex, we have stat, we have stat label, we have stat number. I believe that should be it. Let's go ahead and save it. Go back. And let's see. We also need text. Let's add that real quick. Alright, so there is our cards, our components. So now I'm going to set up the data fetching for the API from GitHub. And so what I'm going to do then is in pages, I'm going to set up a directory called API. And so Next.js allows you to create API routes. So we're going to create a route named GitHub. So when we go to that route, we'll be doing our data fetching from the GitHub API there. So inside here, we'll add a file called github.js. Inside this github.js, we're going to import the octokit library. So it'll be octokit equal to require and we'll do octokit /rest. And inside API route files, it needs to export a function. So we're going to export default async, and this is similar. So this is going to be run through Node. So we'll have access to the request and response object. And let's set up our octokit client. So we'll create a variable called octokit equal to new octokit, and in here, we're going to pass in a property called auth, and we have to then pass in our token, our GitHub token, that will allow us to make requests to the GitHub API or give us access to many different types of API requests that GitHub doesn't allow you by default without having a token. And so to get a token, you'll need to go to your GitHub profile and go to, so under here you'll go to settings, and then you'll go to developer settings, and you can see personal access token, so we'll go there. And I have one set up here already, but we'll just generate a new one so you can see. So you'll do generate new token, and here you can select these scopes for different types of access to GitHub. And for us, we'll just click on user, so this is all we really need. And let's go ahead and generate a new token here. We'll just call this GitHub test. So we'll do generate token. And so here's your new token, and so I'll be actually deleting this after this video. So yeah, so with our token, we want to make sure that no one can see it, so we want to make it like an environment variable so it's not accessed through the browser. So let's go ahead and set that up. So let's copy this, and inside your project you'll go into the outermost directory, and we're going to create a .env file, and in here we can create a environment variable. So we'll do GitHub auth token, and we'll just paste that in there, save it. And by default, this has a git ignore file that will ignore the anything inside your environment variables, so you don't accidentally commit it to your GitHub. Okay, so we have that. And now in our GitHub API route, to access that, we'll just do process.env.github auth token, and then now we can actually set up the data fetching from here. And so for the first one, we'll do followers. So we'll create a variable called followers, and then we're going to do an await, and we're going to go to octokit.request, and here we'll pass in the endpoint. So the endpoint will be users, and my username Rivera1294, and then followers. So we'll get the followers, and I'm actually going to add a query parameter here per page, so we can get access to. So if you have more than like 50 or followers, you can actually access the whole data, because I think by default it'll just send you back 30. So let's make sure we bump that up to 100. Okay. And now let's create another variable called follower count, and basically we'll just do followers.data.length. And so now let's create another variable for the GitHub stars across your GitHub. Call this const stars, and then we'll do an await. So this will be a similar request. The only difference is we're going to, instead of do followers, here we'll do repos. So this will give us the repos. And now we're going to actually do some extra work to actually get the stars from our repo. So let's see. So actually, let me just return this data so you see what it looks like. So we'll do a return res.status 200 JSON. We're going to return some JSON. And let's see. Actually, we can just console.log it. So we'll do a console.log and we'll do stars. Save that. Go back to our project. And we're going to go to our endpoint API GitHub. And so we don't get anything back, but let's go to our console. So in here, you'll get back an array of objects. Let me make this bigger. So you'll get back an array of objects, which is all of the repos. And if you look here, there's a property called, let's see, stargazers count. So this is actually the amount of stars that the repo has. And what I want to do then is I want to get all of my repos and return back the total amount of stars across all of my repos. And so to do that, I'm going to basically iterate through them and get the count for that. But I actually want to only get my repos that I created, so not a repo that I forked. So as you can see here, this repo is not forked because it has false. So I'm going to need to do some add some logic here to handle that. So inside here, I'm going to create a variable called stars count. And then I'm going to grab stars, which is that array of objects of repos. And then do data, since there is a property data. So data is the array of objects. And then I'm going to do the filter function. And I'll add the parameter, call it repo. And I want to make sure I get back all the repos that are not forked. So we'll do repo.fork. And so that'll give us all the repos back that are not forked. So that'll be our repositories. And then from there, I'm going to do a .reduce. And so then we're going to iterate through that using reduce. And reduce takes in two parameters. Takes in the accumulator and then the actual item we're iterating through. And let's see. So this is a function, and it takes in a second parameter. So the first parameter for reduce is the function that it's going to run for every item. And then the second parameter is the accumulator. So I'm going to make this a 0 because I want to just get back a single value. So then, since we have an accumulator here, this variable accumulator on the first run will be set to 0. And so inside our function, what I'm going to do is then return our accumulator. So this will be the total stars that we have. And then we're going to add in item.stargazers count is the property name, I believe. And there we go. So on the first run of this reduce function, our accumulator will be 0, since that's what we set it here. So it'll be 0 plus the first item, stargazers count. And then once that's returned, on the next iteration, the accumulator will be equal to whatever this value was. And then it'll just keep adding it as we iterate through all of those array of objects. And so that will give us the total stars across our GitHub. And I think that should be it. So then the next thing we'll do is then set up the repos that we've starred. So we'll do repos starred equal to await octokit. Let's just go ahead and copy this real quick. And in here, so there's an endpoint called starred, so this will return back, let's see, so let's just go ahead and see what this returns, just so you can have a look. Repo starred. go back over here, make another request, go back to the console.log, and as you can see, so this is what we get back. So this is just a list, an array of the repos that we've starred. So here is Vercel SWR, and now what we want then, we'll create another variable called starred account, and we'll just set this equal to repos star.data.length. And now in our JSON, we're going to return some data. So we're going to return a object with a property of stars, set equal to stars count, and then another property of followers, set that equal to follower count, and then starred, set that equal to starred count. Save that. Now let's make this request again. And as you can see, we get back the data that we want. So stars 23, followers 70, starred is 5. Okay, so now to actually send that to our front-end client, what we need to do is now we're going to make use of the useSWR custom hook to set up our data fetching. And so let's set that up. So in here, we're going to do an import useSWR from SWR. And let's see, so I'm going to change this up. So we're going to add curly braces there, do a return, and then move that up in there. So let's just grab this. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so inside our home component, I'm going to create a variable. This will be const, and this will be using the useSWR component, or I'm sorry, the custom hook. So useSWR takes in a fetcher function. So for this, what we'll need to do is actually create a function that will handle the fetching of from our API. So in here we can just do a const, or I'll just do an async function, and we'll call this fetcher. And we're going to spread out the arguments that will be passed in here by SWR. So we'll just do, spread out the arguments, and then in here we're going to then create a variable called res equal to await, and then now we'll actually use the actual fetch API, and then we'll pass in the arguments parameters there, and now we'll return the res.json from here. So now we'll pass in this fetcher function inside our useSWR. Actually, for the first argument or parameter, we're going to pass in the endpoint that we want our API to hit. So this will be /API/GitHub, and then the second argument will be our fetcher function. So we'll pass that in there. And then from here, we'll just destructure out the data that we get back. And now let's go ahead and replace the stats with the actual data that we want. And so in here, we're going to add some curly braces. We're going to then do data. So if our data is currently undefined, if we're making that initial request, we're not going to have that data right away. So we want to do a data, and then we're going to do a ternary operator. So if data is available, we're going to set it to stars, data.stars. If not, we'll just add a string here saying it's loading. And in here, we'll pass this one So down here, this one will be the data.followers. And then in here, this one will be the data.starred. Okay, so let's save that. And now let's go back to localhost 3000. useSWR is not defined. Let's see. Alright, so let's have a misspelling here. As you can see, it is loading. And now we get our data back. Alright, cool. So it looks like it's working. And let's see. So let's go ahead and just test this out again with updating our GitHub stats. So let's see. Let's do Next.js. So let's go in here and start this. And let's go back, and we should see a revalidate. And there it is. Okay, so the project looks like it's working. Now what we need to do then is we need to set up the deployment. So if we go into our project's dashboard, we go into Next GitHub. Oh, we're going to click in there. And then, so this is our app on Vercel. Let's go to settings. And what we want to do here is we want to set up environment variables. And so in here, I'm going to basically copy my environment variables. So we can go back to env, copy that, copy our token, and we're going to add it. And what Vercel does is it encrypts your token there, and we can, so this should be alright, we shouldn't need that for now. So for production, we have our environment variable, and now let's go back to our terminal, and we're going to push our changes. So if we do a get status, you can see that we have some changes in there. So now let's go ahead and do a git commit, and we'll just call initial commit. Oops, forgot to add everything. So now we have that. Now we can commit, and now we can, so now we can do a git push. And since we're pushing to master, it'll automatically deploy the app for us on Vercel. So we'll do a git push. Let's go back to Vercel. Go to deployments. You can see this deployment was made about 10 seconds ago. So let's go ahead and click in here. So we can see if we run into any issues. Okay, and you can see some information right there. And it looks like it's done. And as you can see, status ready. Now we can visit it. There is our Next.js app, and there's our data. All right, it's very cool. All right, that's the project, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all learned a little bit more about Next.js and Vercel and how to play around with it. If you all enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good day.